Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Bauer Academy. This is episode 3, and today we have a bunch of special guests with us. And today we're going to be talking about the Helium 5G with our Bauer insiders. And we have our team with us today, or a few members of our team. We have Anne, William, Tony. They're all from Bobcat Minor. And we also have a special guest, Dennis. He's an avid 5G expert and Helium community member, and always somewhere within one of our Discords. He's probably taught nearly everyone we know about something in 5G, or has had a conversation with someone, whether they know him or not. So we're really, it's a pleasure to have him here, as well as the rest of our expert power insiders to discuss 5G with you today. I'm sure the first thing on everyone's mind is when 5G Helium Mobile, when are the tokens going to be distributed? And we'll dive into that now.
We actually have a date, and it's actually in Discord. We used to get soon, and that was kind of like the trademark of Helium. But now we actually have a date, so I'm actually quite happy.
I'll take it.
It's next week or
next week, right?
Right, yeah, week of July 18th. So by the time we air this episode.
Oh, exciting!
All right. So the first thing everyone needs to understand is when it's coming. So we've got the date now. The next part is, are you prepared? Am I set up properly? And how are they distributing the mobile tokens? Dennis, can you tell us a little bit about the distribution of the tokens? About, let's say, how many tokens are they distributing in the first, what is this called? The first.
So they're calling it's like an airdrop, but they're calling it a UBI. And I think that might be just like the Discord term for it. It's like a universal basic income, or like a Genesis type thing. It's just they're just dropping tokens for anybody that has their radio online and registered with the SAS. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 50 billion that they're going to drop, but it's going to depend on how many radios are out there. So for every radio, it's a little hard to say right now, but I know that there is a 50 billion that they are going to be releasing with this UBI.
And this is during the Genesis period, they're calling it, right? The first initial, you're online and you're active with some requirements, but they'll be distributing, I think, 100 million tokens per day across all of the active online 5G radios.
That's correct.
Okay. Great.
So again, we don't, those numbers that we don't know how many active radios there are. We can tell you that, there's X amount of gateways, but that doesn't give you the final number. So per, how many tokens you're going to get, per radio it's going to be pretty much until it starts to drop. And then we can kind of start doing some numbers and kind of give you a guesstimate of, like, oh, hey, this is how many indoors and how many radios are on the market or out there.
And these tokens will have, I guess the new wallet will be able to hold them. I don't think the old wallet will be able to do that. So you'll have to migrate to one of the newer wallets to be able to start accepting them. And
Correct.
So if you're a user and you have a miner on an older wallet, you might have to send or carry over your miner to the new wallet, correct?
So they made it fairly easy. You can import a wallet, and from what I've been told, even if you don't update to the new wallet, if you have a 5G miner, you're going to get rewarded. It's just the old wallet is not going to be able to see those mobile rewards. So they'll still be there. It's just you won't be able to see it without that new wallet. So, but like I was saying, importing or making a copy of the your old wallet is fairly straightforward.
That's really good to know.
Yeah. Because for the people who actually buy a Bobber 500, they have to use the Bobber app to onboard it. And then when they onboard the Bobber 500 and deep link, they have the option to either deep link a Helium hotspot app or the Helium wallet app. So assuming that if they do create a 24-word seed word for the Bobber for the wallet app, and then they deep link with that, they should be able to see the rewards in that app.
Okay.
So do you need to have a radio pair with the miner to get a reward, or the miner alone will get some reward?
So the miner alone is just a LoRa miner. So you would need a radio, and the rewards are based on how many radios that you have actively registered and online. So you don't have to be moving any data. So there's you don't have to have a device that's able to connect to your radio, but as long as it's registered to the SAS, and it's able to move data, but as even if you don't have data moving, you'll get those rewards.
Okay. And this is all for the Genesis period, the 50 billion. So once that's used up, then it would probably switch over to using data to earn mobile at that point.
So we also do the UBI, or this like airdrop, we'll call it, because a lot of people understand airdrop a little bit easier. Yeah. This airdrop is going to last until mappers come out. And once mappers come out, then it's going to stop this airdrop, and you're going to have to map POC for your reward.
Okay, no, that makes sense. All right, so if a user sets up their radio, they have GPS working. If they have an outdoor radio and it's set up properly and certified through Freedom Fi that it's online with SAS, they're pretty much ready at that point, I would assume, right?
So there is one other requirement. There is a quality of service, or QoS. It is 100 megabits per second down and 10 megabits per second up that you're going to have to maintain. It's a random test that your gateway is going to do, and as long as you're able to meet those requirements, that's you have to be online and registered, like you were saying with the CPI for the outdoor. You have to be registered with the SAS and active, and you have to meet those quality of service.
To get the tokens during the... Oh, okay. Interesting. Is that for outdoor only, or the indoor radios have to meet the...
Both. So QoS is kind of nice because this does go back to like the carriers. The carriers are going to ask for a quality of service. So I think it's nice that Helium has put that in there to kind of start ingraining it into people that, hey, I need to have a decent service. It doesn't need to be the entire amount of, let's say the outdoor could do 220 megabits down. You don't need the full amount, but there's a minimum requirement that you should be able to meet. So I actually do like that.
So does it mean like if I have an indoor radio and somehow I have really bad internet and it's only providing, say, like 20 megabytes up and down, I actually don't get the reward?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
So if you have a multiple radio connected to one miner, do you get multiple reward, or it would be discounted?
So that's the cool part. Like, you only need to meet the 110 requirement, or I say 110 because I'm adding them up, but the 100 down and 10 up. You only need to meet that requirement on the gateway. So if you have 14 radios connected to the gateway, to the Bobber 500, you can still earn, on those 14 radios, because only the gateway itself has to meet that QoS. So the 100 is on the gateway.
How about in the Genesis period?
Mm-hmm. That's the one. So,
okay.
Yeah. So now when you get to the mappers, that changes everything, because there's going to be I think it's 28 mappers for every 7 radios. So you're going to need 56 mappers, if my math quick math is right, you're going to need 56 mappers a day, like constantly, getting on your radios to be able to get rewards.
And this gets activated during if HIP 52 and 3 pass, or I guess 53.
53, yeah.
Yeah.
So in 51, the HIP for the DAO, there is apparently a pre-mine clause, I guess to say, where this is where those Genesis rewards are coming from. So once 53 comes into play and mappers come into, once 53 becomes active and mappers come into play, then you to earn your rewards, you have to be mapping.
That's interesting. I guess they baked in with HIP 51 the mobile distribution without having it. So 51 is mostly about the DAO, the formation of the DAO, but they baked in this for 5G so we can start earning mobile 5G. And then
Correct.
The 53 will allow us to start mapping and change how that how the earnings start. So it's a different method. So it was a nice workaround to get us faster to HIP 50 to earning mobile tokens with your 5G miners that you've either bought in the past or have recently bought. Okay. And then there's a new scaling reward. So if you have different types of miners, they're going to acquire different multiples. So the more expensive the radio, the higher the multiple is that you would be earning on your mobile tokens. For the highest, most expensive ones, they'll get 2x. Most everyone will probably have some sort of small cell indoor. They'll get 1x the rewards. And then anything that's like a small cell outdoor, that gets a 1.5x reward. There's some math down here. This is just an example. So if you're reading this and you're confused, like I was when I first read it, not remembering that it was an example and just jumping into the math, this example is only scaling it down so we can understand this without having to say there's 100 million mobile tokens going out daily. If you were to break that down, it would be a lot harder of a calculation. So that's why they dropped this down to 100,000 per epoch. An epoch is about 1 hour. So in this case, if you add it up, it's something like 2,400,000 mobile tokens every day in this example. And you can see in here the scalar of how they're calculating this. It's definitely a lot more technical, but basically you'll be earning some amount of tokens, and this is a way you can kind of break this down to just kind of understand how the math is working. But like you said, you can have multiple radios per one miner and earn on each one of those radios on that one miner, which is pretty cool. I like that they were able to do that and check that out. And all of the data speeds that they're checking are on the, I guess, from your router to your miner, correct?
So the gateway, yeah. So Bobber 500, not the actual radios themselves.
Right. Okay.
Because the thing is, like, I'm sure if I'm not mistaken, you guys have a 1 gigabit a second connection. So if you're putting 14 radios, that's 1.4 gigabits a second, or actually that's for 7, so it's more than that. It's like 2.8 gigabits a second. So it's going to top it out. So you're never going to be able to really power 14 radios. But
and we normally can only, like, our maximum is 7, I think, right? 7 radios total.
So that's kind of a soft limit, mainly because of the port connection being 1 gigabit a second. You're pretty much gonna max it out at around 5, depending on which radio you have. So I joke around, I say 14, but you can add as many radios as you please. But you in a real world situation, you're not going to use more than 7 indoor units because you're going to max out your port.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I think I kind of understood something that I was confused about earlier. So when you were saying the QoS, quality of service, you're not referring to say like I have the radio set up, and then I want to see how fast is the speed on Helium, and then I do a speed test over my phone, and if I have say a 40 megabyte upload and a 10 download speed, that's not the QoS you're talking about. You're talking about, I see, I got confused. I thought as a user, if I look at my phone and see that's super low upload and download speed, then I don't get the tokens. But then if somebody really non-technical like I am, I want to know if my gateway is providing that kind of QoS that's required. How do I find out? Because the only way I can kind of understand is, how do I speed test on my phone for my phone? But how do I find out the gateway QoS?
So that's going to be an issue. So I'm not quite sure if there's ways to do that. So I wish there was. I wish that Freedom Fire or gave you the ability to even check in your logs or be able to have just like a speed test done from the gateway itself. But right now, the only way to do that is connect the radio and have a device that you're able to do the test on. So they're not really prepared.
It's not going to be exact, but you could also like plug a laptop into the cable that you're using for the Bobber 500 WAN connection and run a speed test on that. And that will at least give you an idea of the link and your internet connection. It's not going to be exact, but it's something.
And some routers also give you like stats on how much they're sending to each device on your network if you have a managed switch or a really good router that can handle that.
Interesting. Maybe, Tony, this is like a request we can mention to Freedom Fire next time, or something we can build into our own app.
And I know the Circom radio has not very good uplink speed. So, and if the minimum requirement is 10 megabit per second uplink, then I think it's very hard to meet.
Correct. Yeah. So, if for anybody that's tested the Circom or any CBRS radio, even if you have let's say the maximum upload is 1,000, it's not, but let's just say you're never going to get that. My average has been anywhere between 100, to anywhere between like 50 to 120. Like I've never got like maximum amount, so it is what it is, I guess.
Before we jump off into the next topic, are there any other requirements you think a user might need to get set up to start receiving mobile tokens?
So one thing that a lot of people are confused about, and they're like, wait, but the Bobber 500 has one internet connection and then one EMB1 connection or one output. For anybody that does have multiple radios, you are going to need a network switch. And a lot of people are confused about that. The way the software Magma is written, there's a limitation that there's only one output port that goes to radios. So you will need a network switch. Luckily, those are relatively inexpensive. You can get a managed switch for $25 on Amazon, and you're able to take that one port and make it into 5 radios.
Yeah, I think we did a video on that in the first Bobber Academy episode where I show a managed switch. This one happened to be a PoE one, but for the basic one with a regular switch, you can do that. And it's very easy to use. And there's some really good software for the inexpensive ones that you're talking about.
On one last thing too, another confusion is a lot of people think that LoRa and the 5G it shares, the same stuff. It's separate. RS Gateway, which is what handles LoRa, and AGW, which is what handles the Magma core. That's 2 separate things. You don't have to port forward anything anymore. You don't have to do any of that for 5G. Just get it online and kind of get your radio set up, get it registered. as soon as possible, especially if you have the radio. Because right now there is a backlog in the CPI, which is the registration for the SAS. So, if you've been waiting, now is the time to get it going.
It's good to know. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to move into the next section of our discussion today, and it's going to be about Cellular Summer. And I'll let Anne take it over, and you can do a quick introduction for yourself, Anne.
Sure. Okay, I think this is finally going to the insider part, and before it's just a bunch of newbies asking Dennis the experts, like, how does 5G work? And now it's like, okay, maybe offer insider a little bit. So thank you so much, Jess, for organizing this for us. And I am Anne, and I joined Bobcat like a really long time ago. Kind of just making sure that in terms of partnership and communication, as well as products, we kind of do a good job before as well as after we sell the product. And I think a lot of people have seen that with Cellular Summer. There are really a lot more colleagues coming out into this space. That's really cool. So initially, when we started this, we started working with Freedom Fi on the Bobber 500 more than a year ago. So it was Helium that brought us together, and then we worked on this, and we really learned a lot from Freedom Fi. And then ultimately, this Bobber 500 is software licensed from Freedom Fi. So basically, they power the software for this Bobber 500, so that ultimately when we troubleshoot, we'll be able to do certain part ourselves with our software engineers and engineers, and then ultimately we'll have to rely on Freedom Fi. And that's the same for any other gateways that will be running a Freedom Fi software, as well as any radios such as the Mosul Labs and the BiCells radios that are certified by Freedom Fi. Although we officially haven't started bundling together, at Bobcat, we have actually had several conversations with the Mosul Labs guys as well as the BiCells people. All of these guys are really, really cool engineering types of people. So I think when we get together, the conversation always gears toward, hey, how do we help support the customers at the end of the day? Because the customers should really be able to have the ability to mix and match. Right now, there are a couple options that they can buy bundles. But then, like you guys were saying, what if somebody wants to buy 14 radios with one gateway? They really should be able to have the ability to really pick whatever indoor, outdoor radios they want, just mix and match a bunch of stuff and work with a Freedom Fi gateway or a Bobber 500 gateway or any other 5G gateways coming in the future. So ultimately, we as makers want to really learn each other's devices a little bit better. So we actually swap devices with some of the radio guys just to see, hey, let's learn how do our devices connect and work together so that eventually when the customer, either when they come to you guys or come to us, we know exactly how to troubleshoot together. And I think there are some other really cool people in the ecosystem. I think Party Labs is one of them. Although they don't carry our stuff at the moment, I do know that they very much care about content and user education. Even that they don't make the device themselves, they just carry other people's stuff. They really want to make sure the customer can really understand how to use them. I think they actually recently came out with like an article about tokens, mobile, and how the distribution works. So that's something that I wanted to mention and say, hey, this is the time, Cellular Summer is the time for users to kind of do their homework to see what kind of makers, vendors, people are out there in the ecosystem that can provide the hardware, the services, the before and after sales. And I think this is a great time because with more people coming into Cellular Summer and doing this 5G thing together, we have a lot more people that we can learn from and basically just make some great stuff together.
Great. Thanks so much for that.
You're on mute.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Anne. I appreciate you explaining a little bit more about Cellular Summer and some of the deals we have going on and the different types of radios that are available and how we've partnered with a lot of the different vendors that are creating the radios and bundling them with our units. All right. Stop sharing. All right. Let's see if we can move into the next section now. All right. Thanks, Anne. We're going to move into the next section. This is around what gear do you need or do you have? And I'm going to let William introduce himself. He's one of our members on Bobcat support team.
Yep. I'm William. I'm one of the support engineers with Bobcat. So I take care of some of the support requests that come in for the 300 and for the 500 now. So personally, I have a test gateway and indoor radio from work that we use for testing purposes. And then I also purchased a gateway and indoor radio myself. So in the house, I've got two of them, 2 radios, and I purchased an outdoor radio. Probably should have done a little bit more research now that I'm learning about, and I'm sure Dennis will have comments on this, but learning about the requirements for install. I had a place to install it, that fell through, so I'm working on where I'm going to put it. But it's been nice to have the equipment here in the house to kind of play around with it, test it out, see how things connect. So I've done some testing with multiple radios, connecting with simple unmanaged PoE switches. Right now, the thing that I'm kind of working on is where I want to put my 500 gateway permanently is a little bit detached from the house, and the WAN connection for the 500 is Ethernet only because of the QoS requirements. So I only plan on having the one indoor radio. I'm probably not going to saturate it with traffic. So I'm trying to find a way to connect it wirelessly. I picked up this little adapter. So you plug Ethernet in one end and then it connects to Wi-Fi. Didn't really work. I only got about 50 megabit, and like we heard, the QoS requirement's going to be 100. So I'm waiting on a router right now, and what I'm planning on doing is hooking up a second router as a wireless bridge, and then I can plug Ethernet to that. So we'll see. We'll do some testing and see the results, but that's the nice part about having equipment in the house is I can play around with different setups and really test it, see what problems pop up, see what things we can learn from that to better support our users. So far, things have been good with that. I have learned a little bit about having multiple indoor radios too close together, how that can cause some interference. Unfortunately, I don't have enough space to separate them out to really see what a good guideline is, but that's some more things that I want to test in the future. But yeah, I'm excited to have my hands on the new equipment and learn more about it every day.
I have a question. So you said you have like multiple indoor radios, and then when you set it up, I guess maybe it's a question for Dennis. How I'm sure there will be more users than just a couple who have, indoor radios. They don't necessarily have a place they can deploy right away, but I think they probably want to just set it up at least for the next 2 months to get all the Genesis tokens. The way the interference works, if it's just like within a small room or something like that, is it going to affect the result?
So no, that's the cool part with the Genesis and the AirDrop and even mappers. So going back a little bit, when I said just get your radio up and running, let's say you did have, if you're lucky enough to have the 14, it doesn't matter if you stack them up technically and kind of just had them ready to go. For the UBI, it doesn't really matter. Same, the POC, even the mapper isn't like a device that will, like a cell phone. It doesn't connect to the radio itself. What it'll do is it'll just scan the area for what signal is in that area. And as long as it says like, okay, hey, the GPS of the mapper says I'm here, and the radio is registered on the SAS over here, as long as it matches and it shows that you give it coverage, that's how you're going to get rewards. So it doesn't matter if there's interference. It's just going to, as long as it's picking up the signal from those radios.
But for the long term, ultimately for this to kind of, in terms of encouraging the network growth, like assuming that you have multiple radios, you kind of have to plan it out and think about how to do this.
Correct. So from the very beginning, we recommended coffee shops, bars, restaurants, places like that where there's high foot traffic, people congregate for a long time. Think of a sports bar that gets filled up, and think of, let's say that you live in an area that big sports people. There's bars that sit there for hours, and people are it's full. I have one right by my place. Whenever you go in there, there's horrible, service because it's all brick, and within, it's underneath like a parking structure. It's a really shady bar, but it's really nice. But like, the Wi-Fi is always full because there's hundreds of people in there, but there's hundreds of people in there sitting there for hours because they're watching this game. So something like that is a perfect spot, and it's just owned by one guy. And a lot of people are afraid to go approach these people, but the people are leaving to go outside to get service. But if they can do it inside, now this person is staying inside longer and has the ability to order drinks. So yes, eventually once POC starts getting less rewards and DC kind of takes over, or data credits, data transfer takes over, you're going to have to start thinking about moving your indoor radios to like a commercial location. The same with your outdoor radios. You're going to have to find a dead spot or something. I see a lot of people installing them on their house. That's great for the start, but yeah, there needs to be some thinking behind where you want to put it. I did an interview with Gristle King recently where I kind of told him, I was like, I have a location. 2 of them are going to go indoors. It's about I forgot exactly, about a 20,000 square foot building. I'm putting 2 radios, just one on one side, one on the other, to cover everybody inside. And then they have like an outdoor patio, I think at like 100 feet to by 150 feet. And that's where my outdoor radio is going to go. And I'm only going to cover that one area. And I'm not trying to, broadcast, down 2 miles, because, these radios are not going to be able to do that. So I'm trying to kind of, shoot like a beer garden or like a patio for a restaurant.
Are you also going to recommend any SIM cards, eSIM or physical SIM, once you have this place installed? Because how do you then persuade the people to actually say, oh, in order to use this network, you actually need to do this on your cell phone and connect it?
So that's sort of the hard part right now, because I know a lot of people are not going to be able to sell POC, if you want to call it like that. But one cool thing is CalChip, love them or hate them. They do sell a bridge that allows from CBRS to Wi-Fi. So you can actually tell the owner of the restaurant, hey, let me take over your Wi-Fi, and you can install that, and there's a way to use it for their patrons. It's actually pretty cool, because a lot of these people that are like giving off Wi-Fi, they're just doing it off the little router that they got with, their AT&T Uverse router. So you can talk to them. What I'm trying to get to people is to kind of think of this as a service versus this as a way to just be like, hey, I'm making money. Do you want 25% of my money? No, like think about it like a service. Like, hey, we're here to help you out. So we're going to offer you Wi-Fi. If these guys have the ability, like iPads that have CBRS compatibility or phones that have CBRS compatibility, you can hook them up with the eSIM. Freedom Fi right now has physical SIM cards, but Timeline's changed, but they want to offer eSIM directly from Freedom Fi. So you can actually install that eSIM directly to on their radios, or on their phones, and be able to connect to their radios.
And so these mobile the bridges that you install to provide Wi-Fi, you put a FreedomFi SIM card in one, and that is now acting as CBRS radio. So when you would maybe have the radio set up in a location, like say you have a coffee shop, you have two ends, you have two radios on either end, and then you might put two of the bridge. What are they called again?
The bridges. So pretty much, okay. They take the CBRS signal that your radio gives off and is able to convert it into a Wi-Fi signal.
Okay, and then you would be able to set up the FreedomFi SIM card, and they are, I believe, they're unlimited for up to a certain amount of months. It's like 6 months or something like that.
So it's still unlimited. It's just they give you the ability to switch over to an eSIM, from my understanding.
Okay.
So it's still unlimited. Like it's a private network. It's your own radio. You're going to get access to that SIM card or to that radio.
Right. And then everything that's using the FreedomFi or the Magma network protocol, that's our whole private network under Helium.
So this whenever you use like a FreedomFi SIM card, it kind of bypasses all of the Magma core stuff. It's just kind of like a password, like, hey, or the key to your car, like you know, the key fob that you unlock your car, kind of gives you just the access to it. So there's no going through like different it's not going through the Magma core. So you're not getting rewarded for the data that these people are moving on that. So it's just kind of like, hey, let me take the risk of the Wi-Fi. Because, you know, like, let's say someone wants to come in and do malicious things on your, like, you know, let's say a coffee shop. If someone wants to come in and do, download a bunch of torrents on that coffee shop's Wi-Fi, you know, you're going to be the one stuck with that. But you can kind of say, hey, I'll take it over.
And put permissions in place and handle that. If that's something you want to do in the meantime. Got it.
Right.
So the customer using the CBRS in the coffee shop has to have a SIM card or eSIM, right? So how do you deliver this to the customer?
Right now, it's a little bit tough at the beginning right now with POC. So kind of, this is why I've been saying, like, you know, you can deploy in your house and be able to kind of just get it ready, you know, get the UBI, you know, get mappers. It's going to be a little bit longer until we start getting carriers on board when, you know, data credits transfer over. Sorry, let me rephrase that. When data credits actually takes over POC, we're slowly going to repeat what we did with LoRa. There's going to be that peak of everybody wants to get in, and then rewards are just, you know, it's going to get saturated and rewards are going to drop. But the cool part with let's say, hypothetically, Verizon and T-Mobile come in play, you know, and they sign on as carriers to offload, they bring 200 million devices. And so even if we get a small percentage, let's say we get 50% of that, 100 million devices being able to connect on your network is far more than, you know, what LoRa would be able to do. Like 100 million cell phones is able to move, you know, what LoRa is able to do in a year in about a minute. So
do you have any schedule in Helium that there will be the major carrier to sign on to upload data?
Yeah, the official answer is soon.
Yeah, with the trademark, the trademark reply soon.
I guess it's still good. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Yeah, I agree.
I was gonna say, I guess it's still good that like no one has signed on yet while we're still setting up the network, because I would think we would want to get all of the infrastructure and the bugs figured out, and people have a way to learn how to do this and to make sure that they're getting it set up properly. So I feel like any large infrastructure wireless network project, you have to spend time testing, preparing, getting things working, because users are going to want a clean onboarding where there's not a lot of hiccups and things just work.
Correct. And I think I'm okay with them kind of taking a little bit longer. You know, I am glad that POC and rewards are starting to come out, because, you know, I think I got my radio and gateway back in September. So, you know, it's been a little while that they're sitting in a closet right next to me and not doing anything. So it's kind of nice to actually start being, getting rewards. And I think it's going to incentivize people to buy more and kind of build out. So we do need the network because we pretty much need the same amount of radios as there is LoRa gateways. Like going back to these radios, they're not as powerful as LoRa. Like LoRa, if you're on top of a mountain, you're broadcasting, to the next city. Unless you live on the city line and you can, across the street is the next city. That's the only way you're going to get it for CBRS. You're looking at a quarter of a mile on, quarter of a mile to maybe a mile max on the 430, where, if you're 100 feet up with the 436H, which is the higher end radio, you might get lucky reaching 2 miles. But that's not usable if, and if a carrier's radio is, 300 feet away from yours, you might not be able to, even get 100 feet, which is why we need that, 800,000 radios is a good number to get to. And I think that at that point, we'd have really good coverage.
Yeah, I guess the last mile for the carrier, because deploy in the last mile is very expensive for them.
Very much so.
We fill up the final last reach to the end user. Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, like 100%. Like I always talk to people and I tell them, like, whenever we deploy a radio for a carrier, it's been touched. It's been talked about by 50 people, and that's 50 people's that you have that, Dish Network, Verizon, T-Mobile has to pay. So by the time it even gets to being built, there's thousands of dollars already in labor before we even, get to building the $100,000 plus tower. So with Helium, there's 5 of us here. We can go down, everybody goes and tries to get one location. We might be able to do it in a couple hours, and it costs us, $100 in gas and our time, where, like I was saying, $10,000-$20,000 just to secure a location. In some of these locations, you're, T-Mobile, Verizon, and all these guys are paying maybe $1 million in the life of this cell, tower lease, just the land lease, not including the $1 million tower that they're going to erect. So for Helium, this is, we can become the biggest tower company in the U.S. just in sheer numbers of radios and snap of a finger.
I think a good point that you kind of touched on earlier and that I saw you brought up in the talk with Gristle King recently was something that I hadn't considered, which is if the carrier radios are stronger, they're going to prefer that over your radio. So kind of filling in that gap is going to be important. Like, where are the dead spots in coverage indoors, I think, is going to be a big player because it's not as good at penetrating inside. So if we can cover that, then we're less competing with them and more working with them, in my eyes.
Correct. And so this goes back to that I do wish I kind of touched upon it a little bit more. Like right now, indoor is a little bit of a higher risk, like we're with indoor, we're hoping that carriers come on, be it Dish, be it any of the 140 MVNOs, sorry. We don't technically need the top 3 carriers. It'd be nice because going back to my saying, if we get 2 out of the 3, we have 200 million, devices. But if you have like Dish is pushing brand new phones. So pretty much every phone that connects that is on Dish's network has the ability to connect to our radios. So where with like T-Mobile or Verizon, there's people that have $40, phones that are ancient, they never updated because, going up to a new phone, like, I'm holding the Samsung S22, it's $1,000 plus phone and people don't want to spend that. So, with Dish, they are getting the S22s, which are able to connect. So going back to what I was trying to get to is indoor is a higher risk. We're waiting for carriers to join. POC outdoor is going to be the winner. So there's less risk there, but it is a shorter term because then long term, when DC takes over POC, you're going to start fighting with those carriers. And with indoor, well, you're covering 1,500 or 15,000 square feet. The radio is 10 feet above you versus a couple 100 feet away.
This is great. I'm glad we went a little off track, but I think we've learned a lot in this. No, it's perfect. Perfectly fine. This is a lot of information I think people will definitely have questions about. And it's good that we're able to dive in this a lot deeper and have a conversation about this. So this is super helpful. And I wanted to try and talk a little bit more, not just about deploying and how we deploy, but any kind of problems that we may have. I know, William, you started playing around with multiple radios and getting them set up. What are some challenges that you ran into? And then Elmo, if you want to share any kind of challenges over your time, and same with Tony, working on testing the different radios and equipment.
So for me, obviously what I mentioned before about not having an Ethernet connection, that's going to be very important, especially if you're planning on having people actually connect to your radios and use them. You're going to need that solid backhaul. So that's a challenge. Depending on where you need to place the radios, if you have multiple so they don't interfere, you're going to need to work out and kind of measure the signal strength and play around a little bit and figure out where they're going to have some overlap so that people can roam from one radio to another if needed, but that they're not so close they're going to interfere. And then you have to work within the limits. Ethernet generally is limited to 100-meter run. If you're running a cable from the E and B port of the Bobber 500 to like an unmanaged switch, and then from the switch to a radio, you can extend that a little bit, but it's another consideration you're going to have. And then what kind of obstructions you have. I know that I heard Dennis mention on the other stream that he was on about like a U-shaped kind of an area. So if you want to make sure that you're getting good coverage, you're going to have to consider what building obstructions are in the way, how the layout is, things like that. And then make sure you have a good backhaul. Those are kind of some of the things that I've seen so far, just playing around with it. And in such a limited space, it really amplifies those problems for me. So,
great, thank you. Any problems you've run into, Dennis, with setup or major things that people should consider while working on this that we haven't mentioned?
So for the time being, without having carriers onboarded, a lot of people forget that phones need to be unlocked to be able to add a secondary SIM. Like you can't just have a Verizon phone that you just bought and be able to add Gig Sky. The phone needs to be unlocked, and also there has to be compatible with CBRS. CBRS is turning 2, I think, in October, if I'm not mistaken. So it's still a relatively new spectrum. So make sure that you do have a compatible phone that's unlocked.
Okay. A quick point. Good thing you mentioned that, because I forgot. We learned the hard way that just because a phone is 5G capable doesn't mean it's CBRS capable. So I have an S20 Fan Edition, which is like the cheap, like budget version, which I can't find any documentation for, but I can't see the network. So I'm pretty convinced that it doesn't support. The regular S20 does, but so you might run into that as well. Just because in the name it has 5G, it doesn't mean it's going to connect to the radio. So
great.
Yeah, unfortunately, those are different bands. So yeah, so the Galaxy series S10 has the capability of connecting to the CBRS radio, but it does not do eSIM. So you have to actually have a physical SIM. So if you have T-Mobile already, say you have T-Mobile, you're not going to be able to add a secondary SIM because it only takes one. But then, the Galaxy actual flagship phones, the S20, the S21 into 22. Then you have the iPhone 11 and newer, actual main flagships. And then the iPhone SE, the 2022 edition, the brand new one, that also does support CBRS. Certain pixels as well, but certain pixels, some of them allow eSIM, some do not. Stay away from OnePlus. Even though they do have the ability to connect to band 48, garbage. That's the best way I can say it. Like, just stay away from them. They don't do eSIM, and no, they do not connect to band 48. Even though it's supported, it just does not see those radios. So I think they just lied and put that on there.
Actually, we have an article on this from our Bobcat Knowledge Center. So we have this Bobber 500 section, basically starting with gateway setup to radio setup and then to mobile setup. So I think actually inside the connecting your mobile device section, it actually talks about what kind of I can see it. Yeah. So if you go to Bobber 500. Yep. And then the third one, go into the basic information on Bobber 505. You can click into that. Yeah. And then you see the connecting your mobile device. So that's that one. And then from there is actually, you can see a link. So it does kind of give you the link to the FCC site. It's right here, up a little bit. Sorry. All right, yeah, here. So under this, exactly. So it links out to the FCC site where it mentions all of these mobile phones are CBRS supported. So if anybody wants to check if their phone supports that, they can go to the site and basically just put their phone model number, brand there and see if that's supported.
That's very cool. Thanks for sharing that. And if anyone doesn't know, this is our Knowledge Center. We have a lot of really good information. It's jam-packed and filled with anything you might want to learn about our devices, the network, and other useful and helpful information that will probably answer 90% of your questions. And I know William and a lot of the team spend a lot of time contributing to this, so it's great.
Working on a new article right before I jumped on here, so that should hopefully come out today for radio issues. Pretty long article, so perfect. We're always adding new articles and new information.
Yeah, this has been a great support even for me. Anytime I have questions, I come here. But I think this is probably a good segue over to introducing Tony. Tony, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Tony. I joined Bobcat a little bit over 7 months ago, and I was mostly working on the 5G product to bring the Bobber 500 to the market. So in the early few months, I was working on the firmware between the Freedom 5 and the factory, so debugging the firmware issues and testing the firmware, and I hand assemble like 12 units for our internal team to do the testing, and it's been a very intense and fun couple of months, and finally we have the Bobber 500 coming to the market. So I think it's a very exciting journey for me. Yeah. So right now I am kind of working on some support issues. So when customer escalate to our level 1 engineer for technical issue, if we can resolve, we're trying to resolve it by some basic troubleshooting. I think William did a very good job presenting all those articles, so that a lot of questions already been answered before it even coming to the to the engineering team. And let me introduce a little bit about the work support flows. Because just as Anne mentioned, we are licensing the firmware from Freedom 5. So a lot of the internal accessibility is very restricted. So we are charged with level 1 support, and any technical issues that we cannot resolve will be escalated to Freedom 5. So in our customer, we have a customer team that screen out those tickets, and most of the ticket will be screened out from the customer team. And then a few, so far we have a few tickets coming to engineering team. And I think William is working on one issue just resolved yesterday, and it's about the customer cannot onboarding because they stuck in the firmware download, and so we have to escalate to Freedom 5 to have a local access to a customer's PC, and from there to go into the SS sessions to figure out the problem and fix the issue. Yeah, so that's basically the support flow that between customer Bobcat and the Freedom 5. I think William can add more detail on top of it.
Yeah, basically that's it. We get our requests in, and then we have our customer service agents that go through those, check them out. If it's something that we've documented in our knowledge center, like an easy fix or something that a customer can handle themselves and we'll resolve it quickly for them, we'll send them over to that information. Generally, that'll help them get back on track sooner. If it's not something that's handleable that way, then they'll escalate it to the engineers. We'll take a look, and then if we can't resolve it, then we'll escalate it to Freedom 5. And we're trying to take notes if we do have to escalate things. What are they doing? What steps are they taking to resolve it? Is it something that we can do in the future? Because as much as everyone would like to get to all of their tickets immediately when they come in, there are a lot of tickets, and it can sometimes take a while to get to those. And so if we have to send it over to them, that can add more delays. If it's something that we can learn to fix ourselves, then we can get it done quicker and get customers back on track. So, and then we send it to them and have them resolve it, and hopefully let us know what we can do to at least fast track it next time. And we're trying to learn. We're starting to just get tickets in, so the more issues we see, the more we'll learn about what's going on, and the better we'll be able to fix it in the future. So,
So I think so far there are not many technical issues that are really critical. But I was expecting a lot of questions might be on the eSIM configuration. So let me cover a little bit eSIM configuration. So once the customer order the radio, they will receive an email with a personal link and instruction to activate the eSIM. And the first thing the customer has to do is check if their phone is compatible. Just as Anne showed earlier, there are a couple of links that you can check, and then you download the GigSky apps, and then following the step to activate. So because there are so many models, different models of phones, so each setting is is a little bit different. So it depends on what I'm going to cover here a little bit, because I was setting up the Google Pixel 5a. So basically, you can after you activate the eSIM on your phone, you'll be able to allow you to select which SIM, your physical SIM or eSIM as your primary. For testing purpose, I think you can disable the physical SIM and enable only the eSIM, and then you can. I think it's sometimes it's suggested to do a airplane on and off, or even power cycle the phones to get a fresh attach, and then you start looking for the POMM. For the Freedom 5, for the Pixel phone, I think it's in my experience, there's not much effort. You can connect it right away, and so there's a network selection, automatic or manual. You can click menu, and then it will list all the supported PLMN, and then you will find the 310.150. That's the Freedom 5 network, and then select, and then you'll be able to attach to the network. I know for other phones, like a Samsung phone, you need to some manual setup like APN, because APN is missing. So in the case, you either do the GigSky as APN, or if you have a physical SIM card, you do internet as an APN, and then you'll be able to connect and then run your speed test.
And so, Tony, users can they'll get the free.
Yeah, they will get 60 days worth of a plan called WEN Helium plan. It's $59.99 worth of 60 days. So after 6 days, you have to renew.
And then you can choose to. Oh, sorry. You can either, I guess, choose to renew the service as a eSIM, or purchase a
SIM card,
a physical SIM, either through GigSky or through Freedom 5.
Yes.
I have to mention, so if users buy from bobcatminer.com, the eSIM link is only provided if they choose the bundle. So basically, the bundle is the Bobber 500, the indoor Circom radio. So because we purchased a small quantity of these radios from ComChip so that we can have some in stock. And then when we purchase these, the eSIM is the bundle that's provided to us. So we in turn just gave this to the customer. So if the customer only come here and buy the Bobber 500 only, then they can buy a radio anywhere, and then they can either go to GigSky, or they can go to the Freedom 5 website and buy the physical SIM card there. And then also, like you guys were mentioning before, in terms of the support and the coordination with different teams, I think we started shipping our batch 1 probably very early July, maybe first week of July. And this week we're going to ship batch 3 of the Bobber 500. So it's the same with the 300 hotspots. We ship everything 1 batch per week. So we're now on batch 3. So we are seeing on the Explorer that there are more Bobber 500 being onboarded right now, some with radio, some without radio. So it's kind of a slow progress since we just started shipping. So we're seeing some tickets coming in, but it's not, say, a humongous amount given the entire market condition as well as the ROI, and everything is still kind of in development. So we also think that as we ship more products, receive more tickets, we'll also be able to kind of refine the process, how we work with Freedom 5. And it's kind of, the goal is create a cookie cutter process, so that kind of the taking off or the ramping up is where we really learn as much as we can from our partner and say, hey, how do we do this and that? But then as we learn more, document, and then create this cookie cutter process, we'll have a lot more weapons and tools and abilities to troubleshoot that, so that eventually we'll be able to kind of shoulder on the bigger part of the support, and then really learn the, hey, in terms of the licensing part, if there's some like really tricky issues, how we really solve together as a team. That's something that we're kind of trying to figure out. And I think eventually, as more Freedom 5 powered gateways come online and all the radios, I think this is kind of something I'm pretty optimistic and confident that we're kind of building a nice little ramp, not only for ourselves, but kind of for other people as well. So that I think there will be like a pretty nice, hopefully nice cookie cutter that's kind of ready, not only for us, but for other makers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anne. Okay, so we've gone over quite a bit, I think. And do you want to jump into a little bit about our pricing, services, and features?
Sure. Maybe before that, I kind of have a question for Dennis. Since Dennis, like, I mean, I don't know if you're going to be on Discord much going forward, but I know you are on Discord a lot, and with Cellular Summer, you probably like hear a lot of talks, and there's Mosul Labs, there are buy sales, and then there's also a lot of like bundle discounts over the July 4th holiday. What's kind of the general sentiment that you get from the community, and how does it make you feel, like seeing all of these different 5G makers and suppliers coming out?
So I'm excited. It's unlike I don't know if I call it like like 2021 helium. It's nice to get, to see these manufacturers of these small cells, and it's nice to see, some actually pretty big names like Bicells and actually Sercom come in and play. I think it's kind of a toss up though. Like it's kind of funny. Like a lot of people are going, I think it's like a 50-50 split, to be honest with you, going outdoor, indoor. So it's, I don't know. It's nice to see, what companies are coming out, the radios that are coming out are, we, at first when it was only the indoor radio, it excited me, but at the same time, like, I know a lot of people are kind of in the point where they're like, okay, I don't have the ability to connect, to go and get a commercial location. So an outdoor on their house is kind of like their one spot. So seeing, these radios come out and actually start being affordable with these bundles is nice. It gives everybody the ability to do something that 5 years ago, just to even get a license was, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's nice to see a community actually be able to afford, gateways and radios. And so it's I don't have nothing bad to say against it. It's just it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, don't worry, it's recorded, so we can just cut it out.
Yeah, so that's my thing. It's like, just, I kind of feel bad because a lot of people have been waiting so long, and now we see like Helium House, you can buy a kit for $1,000. I was like, what?
Yeah, I think I do see that sentiment, to be honest. I think it does really bring out very complicated feelings, especially with people who were here from the very much beginning with the LoRa hotspots and, kind of really working up your expectations a little bit. And then like the pricing have really changed a lot. Just how much is 5G? How much is the radio? Is it over 1,000? Is it over 2,000? And I kind of, from my perspective, because we really sort of started from the very beginning with the 300. And at the time, I remember when we came out with the price, it was $429, and it's still $429. And I think among the same batch of approved vendors, there's Rack and Cultchip and Nebra and Syncrobit. We are probably still one of the few, if not only, makers that did not raise our price throughout this entire time. And then we have sold a lot and we have shipped a lot, and with the revenues, we've actually really expanded our team, because we started with one person in the US and now we have 13 people over here, let alone our China team, which also, tripled the size. And I think in this process, what we have learned is that it really doesn't stop from shipping the hardware. We have to constantly upgrade the firmware. And then later we learned that, we actually need to also create our own app, which is the Bobber app today. So basically, we really have to put R&D and resources into providing the software. And we kind of expect the same for Bobber 500 and 5G in general. So when we kind of set out the price and we set out everything, I think we're also aware that right now it's kind of a very cooled down market period. There's really not too much movement. And then we're not trying to just drive the sales right now, because you really need ROI and actual things happening, rather than just some hyped marketing and saying, hey, it's really cool, just go get it. But I think the good thing about, the whole community and ecosystem being sort of patient is that then we really work on, okay, then after creating this piece of hardware, what other things are we going to create? So in terms of the Bobber app, how are we going to make it so that it's easy to look at all the Bobber 500 minor and radio status? There's still like a lot of places that we can really improve from what the app is today. And in terms of content, like the YouTube, like the Bobber Academy, like the short Bobber Basics videos, it's like, once you have this hardware, how do you set it up? How do you really learn as much as we can learn as well with this? So I think this is kind of how we see. We don't stop here, but we want to engage the community as much as we can, create more materials, and really, as we create more content, we're actually learning with the community, because a lot of the times we are not the expert, but then in this process we find the experts such as you, and then we're able to connect with more people and then find out, okay, what people need, what do they ask for, and then in return we give them that. So I think that's also something I see from some of the other makers, or even distributors or suppliers. They're really trying to not just be in the business of selling and reselling, but rather they want to create the value add, the services, and then kind of the knowledge provider. And I think this is the really great thing about the community. They don't just stop at selling you the hardware.
No, I agree. And it's something that the community, because I've been part of that community, the 5G Discord since April of last year. So 15 months. And it's been something, me and a few others that have been in that Discord have been, the training of, and the, like, there was no one else there. Even the manufacturer of the whole 5G thing, they come in every 6 months to kind of like correct something that, was speculation, and they'll come in, maybe reply to like 2-3 people, and then gone for another 6 months. And like now, seeing Bobcat, who does the post support, and is actually there. I'm in your guys' Discord constantly, and even though I don't reply in all the
you do.
Yeah, like I try to reply, but like I do watch all the other channels that are in there, and I see that Bobcat is actually trying to support, from firmware updates to the Bobber, the apps. Comparative to a lot of the other makers, I like Bobcat because you guys are actually offering that support after the sale. Because I have many other hotspots that I've deployed, but they're nowhere to be found. And well, guess what I did? I took those, I trashed them, and I replaced them with Bobcats. Because of your guys' support.
And thank you for your support. I think like in Discord, you've earned yourself a black belt in patient building.
So
yeah, definitely.
No, and it's the thing, like going back to like, like I said, like this, the normal, us five, if 5 years ago, we would have laughed that you said, yeah, you can all go out and deploy a radio, network of your own. You can go and deploy 500 units and be your own mini T-Mobile for your city. People would have laughed at you, but now you can technically go do it. So it's actually it's an industry that was tapped to the guys with deep pockets, but now it's something that $3,500 and for the races.
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating how quickly it has developed. But I like where we were going a minute ago and saying like we're more than just a miner, and I think Bobcat has done a lot more than many other manufacturers. When you buy from us, you're getting support in the long term, and we're in this slower time or cool off period. We're developing, we're building, we're not just stopping. It's not just we sold you the miner, you earn some HNT, and now 5G is coming out and you buy another miner. We're in the background developing the app, making this a better experience. We have remote dashboard and many other diagnostic tools and a whole slew of new things coming out in the long term and short term. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting to be a part of this team and the community. We have also a very excellent Discord community of people and experts that are there to support people. And our knowledge center is, I don't know any other miners that I own personally in my fleet that have this much support behind them and expertise. And we're working with partners that maybe, they don't have their own support, and we have to fill in that gap. But I see it as an opportunity. And I think everyone that comes to us is really thankful that Bobcat is an out of the box, easy to set up, easy to use. Everything just works. And if there's ever an issue, it's really easy to find support or information on that. And I think we've just done stuff with deep linking to the Helium wallets. So now you can deep link and sign in and out of different wallets almost seamlessly. It's one of the easiest processes I've seen, and using the app is extremely simple. And we're making it even better every day. So I think everything that we're doing on the multiple fronts has been really exciting, and I'm really happy that this community is growing at the same rate that the Helium network is growing, and all of the services we can offer everyone. I guess at this point, I'm going to close it out. I want to thank all of the Bobber insiders, everyone at the Bobcat miner team for helping today and sharing your knowledge and your insights and helping support the community. And secondly, I want to absolutely thank Dennis for coming on and doing his part that he does every day. It's really great to have someone like you in the community that's there to support not only the Bobcat community, but the Helium community and everyone that has questions. And we have no one else to rely on. So we're always grateful to have your insights and learn a little bit more each day. And I think that's about it. Does anyone have any final thoughts or comments or something they want to share?
I just want to say thank you for having me on. And I know that from the Helium Discord, I'll be a little bit absent, but I'll be in the Bobcat Discord. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy. But I will return to the Helium Discord as well, just in a couple months. I'll take a small little sabbatical.
You deserve it. Great. It's a perfect note to close out on. All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This has been a really engaging and thorough, I hope, exercise and chat from our insiders and experts around the 5G mobile deployment that's about to take place next week. So I think we have a date now, which is great. So we're looking forward to see how everything turns out in the next few weeks. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.